super excited about being here with Angie Turner. Angie, thank you so much for sharing your story. Angie works with a ton of entrepreneurs, which is a big part of the fabric of our membership. So I just want to have you kind of introduce yourself and kind of share how you started working with people like the Wealth Edit.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I have to say, well, Kathy, I met Angie at the Southern Sea, and I was taken with her because she has the ability to make some complicated legal things really simple and easy to understand. So we are really excited. I feel like I met her there and wanted to talk more. So now I'm excited to get the chance to do that. So
thank y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Angie, as they said, and I'm an attorney for creatives. I've been an attorney for about 20 years now. And so my path to attorney for creatives was not a straight one. I actually detoured as a creative entrepreneur for about 10 years. And so in that 10-year detour, I actually stepped into the shoes of being a business owner and learning all the things about, creating products and taking them to market and scaling a business. And so in the midst of all of that, I learned that a lot of creatives have a lot of questions. When they found out I was an attorney, they began asking me all these questions. And I said, I'm just trying to do what you're doing. But as I began to pivot into building my niche practice, I remembered those folks and that they had all of those questions. And so I realized pretty quickly that there might be a spot for me in helping those folks that were in business in the same industry that I was in.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Okay, so one of the things that I think is, I really, one, as we talk about all the time on the Wealth Edit, about how we as women oftentimes pivot. I mean, and that takes a lot of courage to do, especially when you completely shift careers. So one of the things that I'd love for you to talk about is like what that decision was like, because you had built Hype Stripe, your business, a 7-figure business, and in retail, and you were going to trade shows, and that, I imagine that took up a lot of time and energy in your life, and to like shift gears and even go back to school. How did you work through that decision?
Well, it was pretty easy. There were several factors that impacted that decision. And so a lot of times, I think when we pivot, sometimes we're pivoting because we're not happy where we're at. And sometimes external factors help you make that decision. And it was a combination for me. Part of it was we were doing trade shows constantly in the wholesale gift industry. And so we were gone a lot. And as we were growing our family, that became, that was a lifestyle that we couldn't sustain long-term and give the children what we needed to give them. That was one factor. The other factor was that we were going through a recession. And so those factors probably, I'm sure there were other factors, but those are probably the two biggest. And so as we were looking at that, it was like, okay, what do we need to do? Number one, to simplify, but then also to give ourselves more margin so that we could be more present for our children and, parent them and love them well. So as we were trying to figure that out, it became, what can I do that gives me more margin, and how can we streamline things? And so we hit on practicing law, which seems sort of ironic because law can be a very demanding career. But I was determined to make it as streamlined and as flexible as possible. And so hopefully I'm working on that and achieving that. I'm not there yet, but.
So what was it like? And I'm sorry, I'm asking all the questions, but I'm an attorney too, so I like
sure,
really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, just frankly,
I'm just happy to be here.
I'm just like frankly very curious about this. So, what was that transition like as you? I know, like, at what point did you decide you wanted to go back to school and get your LLM?
Right. Oh, right. Sorry. So yeah. So Um, so when I first started practicing, I began practicing in property law, which I knew wasn't going to be an area that that I was going to do exclusively. But I wasn't sure what area I really wanted to focus in. And so what I did was I took a class from an attorney in New York, and she was really not teaching me the law. Like, that wasn't the purpose of it. It was mainly to develop, a marketing strategy and a niche practice, and sort of explore, what does that even mean? And so it was a 6-week course, and there was homework and all of that. And as I was taking that class, I was trying to figure out where do I fit in, because I had not been practicing for 10 years. I had been building this business. And so her light bulb question and my light bulb moment was when she asked me, she said, well, who have you been hanging out with for the past 10 years? And I was like, I've been hanging out with all of these people in the gift industry, all of these creatives. And, she said, what does your email list look like? And I told her, and we had a substantial email list with our business. It was about 10,000 people or businesses. And she said, those are your people. And when she said that, it was like, duh, it was just in plain view. And it just was completely overlooking it, because no one had ever taught me in law school that you could put law with some other industry and, create a niche. Like, that wasn't a thing when I was going through law school. So, or maybe it was, and I just was totally clueless. I don't know. But anyway, so when she said that, the light bulb went off, and I decided then that I needed to go back to school and really specialize and learn more about what I was going to pursue. And so that's what I did. So it was pretty easy decision on my part. I'm fairly decisive anyway. So once I make up my mind to do something, I'm doing it.
That's interesting. We have a private practice called Summerside Advisory. It's a wealth management practice. And I had a similar business consultant kind of aha moment, because when we moved to Birmingham, the only people that would talk to me because I wasn't from here, were attorneys. And so it's like, a business consultant was like, well, did you know that like 50% of the people that you serve are attorneys? I'm like, no, I have no clue. It was one of those, like, it's almost like you have to have someone look at it objectively, or really ask those right questions. Like, who are your people? Like, who is your natural market? Because those are going to be the supporters to help you launch and grow your dream career.
I think that's an important point, because I think a lot of times too, we see ourselves one way. And if we stop to ask others, what do you see? Or give me feedback in this area, that's valuable, because I've found so many times over and over again, and not just in my professional life, in other parts of my life too, when people have given me feedback, how they see me is not necessarily how I see myself. It's usually actually better. I can be my own worst critic, and I can be harder on myself than anybody else can be. And so sometimes that's a stumbling block for us to move to the next, whatever the next thing is. And so having her say, these are your people, duh, they're right here, that's what you've been doing all this time, and that's where you've been investing. And so why wouldn't you, turn back around and help those folks? I'm like, yeah, I didn't even think that I could, but I can. And so that's what I do. And I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it, because I have a creative side. I did all the product development for our company and the marketing and the design work. And so, I mean, it's so fun to be able to talk to other people and say, yeah, I've been right there. I know how that feels, and, and encourage them. I mean, that's not legal, advice, but just being able to encourage people and just say, hang in there and keep going. So I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Well, I imagine that it also creates like a more robust and valuable experience for your clients, because like we said this other day, I mean, it's not like a clinical experience where like, oh, you need a trademark. All right, give me, these X things and I'll make sure that gets done. Like, you're really engaging with them and talking with them and, encouraging them, but also can say, you know what, I've actually been here. I've done that. And these are the mistakes that I made. And these are things you need to look out for.
Right. That's right. And I mean, a lot of times I guess it all kind of blends together as legal advice. But I mean, a lot of times, in fact, I just had a client yesterday I was talking to, and we were just talking, I mean, in the gift industry, and we were talking about different things. And I mean, I guess it's legal advice, but then there are times when I'm telling them about, you know, these are things that I've tried. These are things that I know work. And these are things that, you know, don't waste your time, because, you know, unless something drastic's changed, it's going to be a dead end. You know, it's not going to work, or you know, it's not going to give you the return that you want. So, so yeah, I mean, I love building those relationships. I'm totally all about that. I mean, I have clients who ask me to do one thing, and I do, and then that's it. But then most of my clients are people that I've built relationships with over a period of time, and have seen their businesses kind of move through different phases. So,
what, for your just kind of typical client, what are some of the things as they're starting their business that they really need to be thinking about?
Right.
Or like legal whiffs that when they come to you maybe 2 to 5 years down the road with their practice, you're kind of like, oh, we got to clean this up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. So I like to think about starting a business as having a child. And so, you know, when you have a child, you know, you're heavy on the doctor's visits and the wellness visits, and checking all the stats and making sure they're developing and progressing, you know, and growing the way that they're supposed to be, especially early on. And then as the child grows, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you know, you keep checking back, but it's not the same. Like, we have a week visit, and then a 1 month visit, and a 3 month visit, and a 6 month visit. Right. So, I mean, starting a business is very similar. You know, if you're trying to start it as if you mean to move forward with it, then the prudent thing to do is to take care of and protect it from the outset, so that the growth is healthy, and so that you're out ahead of whatever the potential risk is before it happens. It's much easier to be out ahead of that than it is to have to react, defend, or respond. Is what I like to tell my clients. So that being said, protecting, and the way I like to explain it to my clients is, you have all of these relationships that you want to protect. All of that stuff sort of falls under some sort of document or contract. And there's lots of different ones that businesses need. And then you have the creative and created stuff. And all of that falls under sort of intellectual property and protection in that realm. So I like to divide it into two sort of categories, and it makes it, I think, simpler for folks to understand and sort of digest.
Yeah, and I think we talked through some good statistics the other day about how much more it costs to fix something than it does to do it right the first time.
Right. So, you know, it's going to cost either way, is what I tell my clients. So you'd rather pay what it costs to protect than what it costs to defend. So, for instance, if I'll just take trademark, for example. So, for example, if you are looking at registering one trademark, you know, I mean, you can pay somewhere you can expect to pay and you hire an attorney, you can expect to pay somewhere in the realm of $2,000. And also, I don't think I mentioned this the other day, but your chances of getting that trademark through when you hire an attorney go up 50%, because hopefully that person knows how to write the application that puts you in the best position to get the registration. So $2,000. If you don't register the mark and you move on with your business, and, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road, you know, maybe nothing happens, but, you know, 15 years down the road, it's not inconceivable that somebody could say, hey, you're using this mark, it's an infringement, you've got to stop. Then what do? You have to defend. So you have 15 years worth of customers or clients, you have 15 years worth of your brand recognition, presumably, tied up, but it's not protected. And so then what do? You either have to defend it, which can cost anywhere beginning $25,000, $30,000. That's the bottom conservative level, and it goes up from there to defend. And if you lose, then you will have to rebrand. Or if it's clear that you're going to lose to begin with, then you have to rebrand. And so that's, you know, I mean, depending on what branding companies, I mean, that can be anywhere from $7,500, $10,000 just to rebrand. So, you know, That's a substantial difference in cost. So the idea is you're going to have to pay. So why not pay the lesser amount and have the law and the facts on your side so that it puts you in a position of strength if ever that moment comes where you have to respond or defend something, you're in a position where, you've registered, so the law's on your side, and then you're operating the way you're supposed to be, and the facts are on your side. It's much easier to handle that from a legal perspective.
That's a good word. Mm-hmm. And we get that question a lot. And, as we've built the Wealth Edit, and it's been interesting to watch like how our membership has filled out. And we have so many women that are creatives that have, sort of maybe not on a whim, but have decided to, I'm going to try, my hand at this as like a money-making endeavor, not even a business, right? Because so oftentimes it's like, people like this, so maybe I'll go to start. And it kind of happens it's kind of organically, rather than when
strategic.
People that are like strategic and like, this is my idea, and I'm going to create a business. Right. I need to get this trademark. So as you talk to women, because you said almost all of your clients are women, which I love.
That's true. Yes. Me too.
So talking to these women who have sort of found themselves as like accidental business owners, is it ever too late to go back and do some of this? So let's say you end up 3 years in and are like, wow, I'm actually doing something. Which
right.
We see that a lot. And like they're like, I thought I was just going to bake cookies out of my house. And now it's like, everybody wants what they have, and they're having sort of like catch up on the hard skills of being a business owner.
Right. Yeah. So first of all, I can say I know how that feels. I was sort of an accident. I'm sort of an accidental entrepreneur myself. I mean, I started out thinking, I'll do this, but I did not expect it to do as well as it did. So, there's that. So the best day to take care of your business is from the beginning. The second best day is today. There's no, I mean, so. Yeah. So, and the reason I say that is because once you know better, you do better, right? I mean, we've all heard that. So, and when you know better, it behooves you to put yourself in that position of strength so that, your business is protected and you can move forward. Because, I mean, I'm sure you guys point this out a lot, but, especially with creatives. I mean, it doesn't even really matter with any business. I mean, there's the industry or the thing that's being created or the service that's being provided. But on the backside of that is the financial, the operations, the behind the scenes that nobody ever really sees. It's just, whoever the business owner is and maybe their employees or, advisors or whatever. But that back end of the business is what allows you to do that front end of the business. And the back end involves the money, the accounting, and the legal. And if you don't have those things sort of nailed down, your foundation sort of put in place and on solid ground, then those are the two things that can take your business down faster. It doesn't matter if it's creative, that's true. But even if it wasn't a creative business, which I think all businesses are creative, it's just pointing out where the creativity is. But anyway, those are the two items that can take your business down faster than anything. And usually those two are related, so why wouldn't you want to take care of those? And I understand everybody's not, like legal's not their favorite thing or money's not their favorite thing, but those are the two things that make the world go round, Yeah. I mean, and legal really, I mean, if you look at your daily life and try to find the legal issues in your daily life, maybe not that you have specifically, but how the law affects your life on an everyday basis. I mean, you can't go 5 seconds without pointing to something and figuring out where the legal issue might be with anything really, I mean, our daily lives that's what our lives work around. So
absolutely. And okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit to a more personal topic, and one that I have thought about a number of times since the last time we talked. But one is that you have some historical significance in your town as an attorney, as a female attorney. I love that. So Angie is the first female attorney in Pelham, Georgia. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Isn't that funny?
I love that.
It's good to take a few minutes and think about that. Like, there are towns all across this nation that have never had a female attorney before. That's crazy. That's
I know. Amazing. I just learned that this year too. And I've never actually stopped to think about it. And I think of, I'm somebody who wants women to succeed. Of course, I want to succeed myself. I have 2 daughters. I want them to do well. But I guess I've never really stopped to think about it until one of my daughter's friends was doing, she was doing some project. I don't know if it was a senior thesis or what, but she was highlighting all the women in the local, in our area locally, I think even in our county maybe, and pointing out different, professions that they were in. And her mom texted us and said, I think Angie's the first female attorney in Pelham. I was like, oh my gosh. I had no idea.
That's so awesome. Well, going back, this is like me just going back real quickly to trademarking. Okay. So like the Wealth-Headed is probably a good example of this. So like we trademarked the Wealth-Headed, used an attorney, everything went great, Good. But then we found since we launched that there's a few people that have like come and started like using some of our key terms, like in their own brand. Like, do you think people should trademark key terms? We're not trying to get free legal advice. We're just asking for a friend. Sure. What do you think? Like, how far down the trademark rabbit hole does one actually go, or is it even necessary? You see what I mean? I knew it was, we knew it was necessary to like trademark the Wealth-Headed. We knew that.
Right. So what I tell my clients is this, or what I tell anybody is this. Every business has at least one trademark. If you're operating, usually it's your name, whatever it is that your brand you're operating under, that's usually at least one trademark. There are other times when people have taglines or, logos that they want to protect. I mean, it's possible you could have 2 or 3. And when you're talking about companies that, as they're growing and as they're building, that IP sometimes tends to grow. You can think of like, for instance, we can all relate to Disney, for example. They have a huge portfolio of IP and trademarks, among other things, patents and copyrights as well. So really and truly, the answer is it depends. There's not a hard and fast, like, you only have one or none, or, you do it because of this. You have to look at each business and what is the goal with each business? Like, what are if you're using a tagline or using specific words, what is your goal in that? If you're just using them as descriptors, then maybe that's not a great reason to trademark. Trademark is used as a source identifier, like so that when the consumer goes out and says, oh, I want to purchase from ABC, they could be assured that that's who they're purchasing from and not XYZ. And so you want to make sure that your branding is continuous and consistent, so that that consumer can be assured that, okay, I'm definitely buying from ABC. So when you're thinking about your business, and sometimes these things evolve. Like, you start and you have your name and maybe you have a tagline, but then you have a product and the product just goes crazy. And so people begin to know that product because of, whatever you've called it. Well, now maybe that makes sense to protect that, because maybe that's a product that other people can duplicate or, emulate in some way, shape, or form. But you want people to know, like, for instance, like with McDonald's, like McDonald's has the arches and they have their name, but then they also have the Big Mac. Well, they would be extremely upset if some other fast food restaurant came alongside them and started calling their sandwich a Big Mac. They wouldn't be able to. They would be in court just like that. So, it's not just your brand name. It's not just your logo. It can be, potentially like your signature products or your signature course or your whatever it is that you're known for, those things can gain trademark protection, and probably should.
Good word.
I love that, the concept of the source identifier. I like
yes.
that. I've never heard that said, and I like that. That is really helpful in thinking.
Good.
Well, Angie, this has been so great, and we are so thankful to have you, and we hope that we can have you back again for more legal topics, because I bet we have a lot of different questions, and it comes up all the time. And just like you said, it's so important to understand both the financial and the legal side of your business.
Definitely.
Even creatives who don't want to have to deal with it. And the key is just to find those right people that understand what you're doing and relate to what you're doing.
Right.
And so, Angie, we'll end our question with the question that we always ask, but
we have one.
And we have a question here.
Wait, one more.
Okay. But I want to make sure at the end we give you time to tell people how they can find you if they need to. All right, so we have Ari here who says, a story just came out about a company named Droplet who Mountain Dew tried to sue, then came out with a company that looks similar to Droplet's branding. That is.
Okay.
Have you heard of that? Like,
no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's so much trademark. There's so much that goes on in the world of trademark. Like I have, you guys may want to do this if you don't already too. I have certain keywords on Google Alerts so that I get stories every day. So like I have on Google Alerts, like trademark infringement or copyright infringement. So then I know, like, stories that are happening in real time as they're developing, and I'll open that email and I'll flip through it every day, and ones that catch my eye, I'm like, this is interesting. Like when there was something going on with Taylor Swift and her new album, and some amusement park that had a similar name, and so they're anyway, so you get the idea. But that, I mean, that's not an idea that is exclusive to me. You can do that in your own business too, so you stay on top of things. But I haven't heard that one yet. So Mountain Dew is suing or being sued.
Do you want to take your line off mute and just kind of tell us?
Yes, sorry. And I just tried to send a link to it, but I sent the wrong document that I copied. But apparently Droplet, it's a company out of California, and they were approached last year by PepsiCo and said that they were pressured because of their brand name, which was called Dewdrop, citing its similarity and potential for confusion with Mountain Dew. So they basically abandoned all of their trademark filings and changed their branding, but then they changed it to Droplet. And then PepsiCo just launched yesterday a company called Soul Boost, which the branding looks very, very similar to Droplets. So it's kind of like this back and forth. Like they did all the stuff to change it, and then they're getting like slapped in the face now,
Yeah. Basically they're getting strong armed is what it sounds like. So, I mean, the similarity in the name with Mountain Dew and I forgot what you said, Dewdrop or whatever. That's not surprising. I mean, even though it's possible that it wouldn't, like, I mean, we know if if you're buying Pepsi or Coke, if you're buying, Mountain Dew, but maybe you don't know if you're buying Mountain Dew or Mellow Yellow when you're grabbing it really fast. I mean, even though those names don't sound the same, but when the names are potentially confusingly similar, that's the legal standard, confusingly similar, that a consumer would accidentally pick up one thinking they were buying the other. So you can see where that might be the issue. The other thing about that is these big brands like Mountain Dew, which I think is owned by PepsiCo. I mean, these big mega brands, I mean, they've had IP registered for a long time. And so once you have that IP registered for a long time, after the first 5 years of registration, if you don't have any conflicts or whatever, you can file an affidavit called an affidavit of incontestability. And basically once that's accepted by the trademark office, that's basically sort of setting you apart as a national brand. So the difficulty for the other person, the little guy, in fighting that once there's an affidavit of incontestability on file with the trademark office becomes a lot greater. So another reason why you would want to register, because anybody, once they get past that 5-year mark, can have that affidavit of incontestability. Wealth Edit could have the affidavit of incontestability once they get past that 5-year mark. And it makes it a lot harder for someone who comes along afterwards to fight that. So,
and it really is with trademarks. It's first of use, right? So even if if somebody came behind the Wealth Edit and it's like, oh, I want to do the Wealth Edit, like they'd still have an uphill battle because we've already been using it. Like they'd have to prove that they were using that first, which they aren't.
Right. That's right. For use is what trademarks, first use is what trademark hinges on. So but this is where it gets interesting, is that when people use the mark and then they don't register it and they go 5 years, 10 years down the road without it being registered, well, they've built this brand or they've built this company, and then someone comes behind them and they're like, oh, look at how successful they are. Look at what they've built. I'm going to use something the same or similar. And then that person goes and registers that mark.
Yeah.
That's where it gets really sticky, because you can prove first use.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can prove first use, but you may have a difficult argument because the judge is going to say, or the trademark appeals board is going to say, well, you didn't bother to take care of it and protect it for this many years. So why should we side with you now? There's a really famous case involving Burger King where that happened. So there was a little BK before there was the one that we know. And the little BK had 5 locations in Minnesota and operated for I forget now, 10, 15 years. And then they decided they wanted to register their mark. Well, come to find out, Big BK that we all know had already moved in and begun the process, or either had completed the process. And so then they were like, well, you can't do that. We've already been in business for this many years. And they lost. Little BK lost. That's why we don't know about them. And Big BK won. So Little BK wasn't out of business, but they were basically, they could not expand any further than those 5 stores. So they geographically couldn't go any further than where they were. So they couldn't expand. So they just had to do the best they could with what they had, because that was the court ruling.
Yeah, good word.
So interesting.
Well, tell us why you said yes to the Wealth Edit. That's our favorite question. And then tell us how we can how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. I said yes to the Wealth Edit because, like I mentioned before, I think it's extremely important for people to understand the finances and the financial of their business and their personal, but then also they need to understand the legal, and those two are oftentimes connected. And so, so hopefully we've helped folks understand that a little further.
Yeah.
You can find me at my website is angieavardturnerlaw.com. You can find me on Instagram, Angie Avard Turner Law. I try to be consistent. It's pretty much, if you Google Angie Avard Turner Law, you will find me on all of my social media platforms and my website.
Okay. Well, thank you, Angie. This has been time well spent. I feel like I learned a lot, and also am just really impressed with all that you're doing. And I'm thankful that everybody got to hear your story.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.